The arrival of the false gods, the biomechanical leviathan, drifted through the void like a living nightmare made of metal and flesh. Its surface pulsed with veins of golden energy, while massive organic tendrils writhed slowly along its hull. This was the divine retribution, flagship of the Nexarian Empire, and it had never known defeat in 3,000 years of conquest. Emperor Vorthak stood in the nerve center of his vessel, his towering frame casting shadows across the living walls. His species had evolved beyond the need for traditional technology. Instead, they had learned to merge biology with machinery, creating ships that thought, felt, and hungered for destruction. His 6 arms moved in graceful patterns as he communed, directly with the ship's consciousness, feeling its eagerness for another easy victory. The bridge crew, if they could be called that, were more like symbiotic extensions of the ship itself. They had given up their individual forms long ago, becoming one with their vessel's nervous system. Through them, Vorthok could see everything his empire had discovered in this remote star system, a yellow star, unremarkable in every way. 8 planets, most of them barren rocks, and on the 4th planet from the sun, something that barely deserved to be called civilization. The species called themselves humans, and they had managed to scrape together a few colonies in this system over the past century. Their technology was laughably primitive, their ships little more than metal cans propelled by chemical rockets and basic fusion drives. How did such insects even discover faster-than-light travel? Vorthok wondered aloud, his mental voice resonating through the ship's neural network. His chief advisor, General Thixus, materialized beside him as a holographic projection from deep within the ship's biological core. Our analysis suggests they stumbled upon it by accident, my Emperor. Some kind of experimental accident involving quantum mechanics. They barely understand what they have created. Vorthok's equivalent of laughter was a deep harmonic vibration that made the ship's walls pulse with amusement. 3,000 years of galactic dominion had made this routine almost boring. A new species would be discovered. The Empire would demand submission. The species would either kneel or burn. It was the natural order of things, as inevitable as gravity itself. The largest human settlement was on a world they called Kepler 4, for to be a mining colony of perhaps 50,000 souls. Vorthok could sense their primitive communication networks, their simple computer systems, their pathetic attempts at planetary defense. They had a few orbital platforms armed with projectile weapons and energy cannons that might have been impressive to their own kind, but were less than toys to the Empire. Send the standard message, Vorthok commanded. Let them know they have the honor of serving the Nexarian Empire. Give them the traditional choice, immediate surrender or immediate destruction. The message was transmitted on multiple frequencies, translated into the human language through the Empire's vast database of conquered species. It was simple and direct, as all their ultimatums were. Primitive humans of Kepler 4-4 to be. You have been selected to serve the Nexarian Empire. You have 24 of your hours to signal your complete surrender. Comply, and your deaths will be swift. Resist, and your suffering will echo through eternity. On the mining colony below, Captain Elena Vasquez stood in the command center, watching the massive alien vessel through their best telescopes. She had been a military officer before taking command of this civilian outpost, and every instinct she had developed over 20 years of service was screaming warnings at her. The alien ship defied easy description. It was enormous, easily 10 times the size of humanity's largest vessels, but it moved with an organic fluidity that no mechanical craft should possess. Worse, their sensors couldn't get clear readings on its structure or capabilities. It was as if the ship was actively resisting their attempts to understand it. "Captain, we're receiving another transmission," reported Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison from the communications station. His face was pale, but his voice remained steady. "It's on multiple channels, and it's been translated into English." The message played through the command center's speakers, and the cold, alien voice sent chills through everyone present. 24 hours to surrender completely or face something worse than destruction. It was the kind of ultimatum that left no room for negotiation or hope. "Options?" Vasquez asked, though she already knew the answer. "We could try to evacuate," suggested Dr. Marcus Chen, the colony's chief scientist. "The transport ships could maybe get 20% of the population to safety before that thing decides to attack, and leave 40,000 people behind." Vasquez shook her head. "Besides, where would they run? That ship can obviously travel faster than anything we have." Dr. Chen adjusted his glasses, a nervous habit he had developed over years of dealing with impossible problems. There might be another option. "We study it." The command center fell silent. Morrison stared at the scientist as if he had suggested they try to arm wrestle the alien ship. "Study it, Doc. That thing could probably blow up our entire planet with a sneeze." "Exactly," Chen said, his excitement growing as the idea took shape. "It's so far beyond our technology that they probably think we're no more dangerous than bacteria. They won't be trying to hide their capabilities from us. Every sensor we have should be focused on that ship, recording everything it does." Vasquez caught on immediately. "You want to learn how their technology works by watching them use it." "More than that," Chen continued. "I want to transmit everything we learn back to Earth in real time. If we're going to die anyway, at least we can make sure humanity learns something from it. Maybe the next human colony they encounter will be better prepared." It was a desperate plan, but it was something. Vasquez made her decision. Do it. Every sensor we have gets pointed at that ship. I want to know everything about it. How it moves, how it's powered, what its weapons look like when they charge up. And I want all that data streaming back to Earth continuously. The 24-hour deadline passed without a response from the humans. Emperor Vorthok felt a flicker of annoyance, though such primitive emotions were beneath a being of his evolved state. Most species either surrendered immediately upon seeing the divine retribution or made futile attacks that were quickly crushed. This silence was ... unusual. "Perhaps they are paralyzed with fear," suggested General Thixus. "Some species become catatonic when faced with our superiority." Then we shall wake them up, Vorthok decided. "Demonstrate our power on the smallest settlement. Let them see what happens to those who ignore the Empire's generosity." The ship's weapons were extensions of its living nervous system, organic cannons that could channel the raw fury of stars. The target was a research station on one of the system's moons, home to perhaps 300 humans. Vorthok could have destroyed it with the tiniest fraction of his ship's power. But he wanted to send a message. Golden energy built along the divine retribution's surface as its weapon systems came online. The biomechanical cannons pulsed with life as they gathered power from the ship's core. When the beam lanced out, it was beautiful in its terrible perfection. A column of pure destruction that could have carved through mountains. The human research station vanished in an instant, vaporized so completely that not even debris remained. The energy beam continued past its target and struck the moon's surface, leaving a crater that glowed with residual power. It was a perfect demonstration of the Empire's might. On Kepler 4, for to be, Dr. Chen and his team recorded every detail of the attack. Energy readings, beam frequency, power distribution patterns, charging time, dissipation rate, everything that could be measured was measured and immediately transmitted to Earth through quantum communication arrays. Incredible, Chen whispered as he studied the data. The power output is beyond anything we thought possible. But look at this. The energy signature is organic in nature. That's not a machine up there, it's alive. Captain Vasquez watched the crater cooling on the moon's surface and felt a cold fury building in her chest. 300 people had died to provide this data, but she was determined their sacrifice would not be meaningless. What else can you tell me about it? The weapon system appears to be biological, Chen reported, his fingers flying over his instruments. It's drawing power from what looks like a fusion core, but the entire ship is treating that energy like a living organism would treat nutrients. This isn't technology as we understand it, it's evolution. The implications were staggering. Humanity had always assumed that advanced alien civilizations would develop along similar technological paths: better computers, more efficient engines, stronger weapons. But this ship suggested a completely different approach to advancement, one that merged the organic with the mechanical in ways that human science had never imagined. Keep studying it, Vasquez ordered, and keep transmitting everything to Earth. If other colonies are going to face this, they need to know what they're up against. Emperor Vorthok expected immediate surrender after his demonstration. Instead, he received a message that puzzled him. "Great Empire," the humans transmitted, "we have seen your power and wish to discuss terms of surrender. We request 40 hours to organize the transition of our government." The Emperor's closest approximation to confusion rippled through the ship's neural network. In 3,000 years, no species had ever requested time to organize their surrender. They either submitted immediately or fought hopeless battles until they were exterminated. This delay served no purpose he could understand. What game are these insects playing? He asked General Thixus. "Unknown, my Emperor. Perhaps their primitive minds cannot process the reality of their situation quickly. Some lower species require time to overcome their instinctual resistance to submission." Vorthok considered simply, destroying the colony immediately, but curiosity stayed his hand. These humans were behaving unlike any species the Empire had encountered. Their actions served no logical purpose, which made them interesting in the way that an unusual scientific specimen might be interesting. Very well, he decided. 48 hours. Let us see what these creatures think they can accomplish with such a brief span of time. But the humans were not preparing for surrender. Dr. Chen's team had discovered something remarkable in their analysis of the alien weapon. The biomechanical nature of the ship created energy patterns that were incredibly complex, but also surprisingly predictable. Living systems, no matter how advanced, followed biological rules. "It's like studying a predator," Chen explained to the assembled colony leadership. "Yes, it's more powerful than anything we've ever seen, but it has the same basic limitations as any living thing. It needs energy to function. It has metabolic processes, and those processes create waste heat that has to be dissipated." Lieutenant Commander Morrison leaned forward, hope flickering in his eyes for the first time since the aliens had arrived. "Are you saying it has weaknesses?" "Everything has weaknesses," Chen replied. "The question is whether we can find them and exploit them before it kills us all." The 48 hours passed in frantic activity. Every moment brought new discoveries about the alien ship's capabilities and limitations. The data flowed back to Earth in an endless stream, where humanity's greatest minds analyzed every detail. If Kepler-4 were to be fell, at least the knowledge of how these aliens fought would survive. When the deadline expired, the humans transmitted another message. Great Empire, we require additional time to complete the surrender process. Our systems are complex and cannot be quickly dismantled. We request one more week. This time, Vorthak's anger was real and immediate. The ship's walls pulsed with dark energy as his emotions resonated through its nervous system. A week. These microbes dared to demand a week from beings who had ruled the galaxy since before their son was born. Enough, he declared. Destroy the colony. All of it. Leave nothing but ash and regret. The divine retribution's weapon systems came online, with predatory eagerness. This time there would be no demonstration, no mercy, no chance for survival. The ship's biomechanical cannons began drawing power from the core, building toward a release that would sterilize the planet's surface. But as the weapons charged, something unexpected happened. The human ships in orbit around Kepler-4 for 2b began, moving in coordinated patterns, and their movements were not random. They were positioning themselves with mathematical precision, creating overlapping fields of sensor coverage that focused on the alien ship like the eyes of a vast array. Dr. Chen watched the weapons building toward maximum charge and felt a grim satisfaction. They had learned everything they could from peaceful observation. Now it was time to learn what these aliens looked like when they were trying to kill. All sensors to maximum resolution, he ordered. I want every detail of how those weapons work when they fire at full power. Captain Vasquez stood beside him, watching her people prepare to die in the name of knowledge. It was not the ending she had hoped for, but it was an ending with purpose. Somewhere in the data they were gathering, future humans might find the key to defeating these false gods. The golden beam lanced out from the divine retribution, and Kepler-4 for 2b's brief moment of defiance ended in light and fire. Asterisk, the reckoning. Months after the destruction of Kepler-4 for 2b, the void near that dead system rippled with the emergence of 12 human warships. They were sleek, angular vessels that looked nothing like the mining ships and cargo haulers the Nexarians had encountered before. At their head flew the indomitable Spirit, Admiral Sarah Mitchell's flagship. Bristling with weapons that had never existed before, the aliens showed humanity what was possible. The human fleet materialized at the edge of the system, their new quantum drives leaving barely a whisper in space-time. Admiral Mitchell stood on her bridge, studying the tactical display that showed the Nexarian flagship still orbiting the dead world of Kepler-4, for to be like a satisfied predator guarding its kill. Ma'am, we have visual confirmation of the target, reported Commander Lisa Park from the sensor station. It matches the profiles we developed from Dr. Chen's transmissions exactly. Mitchell nodded grimly. The data that Dr. Marcus Chen and Captain Alina Vasquez had died to collect had been worth more than gold to humanity's scientists and engineers. Every detail of the alien ship's structure and capabilities had been analyzed, dissected, and used to design weapons and tactics specifically tailored to fighting biomechanical opponents. Signal to fleet, Mitchell ordered. Formation Delta 7. Remember, this isn't about winning quickly. It's about sending a message to every alien empire in the galaxy. Humanity is not prey. Aboard the divine retribution, Emperor Vor felt the familiar stirring of the ship's consciousness as it detected the approaching human vessels. His initial reaction was amusement mixed with mild irritation. Had these insects not learned their lesson? The destruction of their colony should have sent a clear message to any other human settlements in the region. 12 vessels reported. General Thixus, as the ship's sensory network analyzed the approaching fleet. Primitive design, but somewhat more advanced than the mining ships we encountered previously. Shall I destroy them immediately? Vorthok studied the tactical display with interest. The human ships were indeed more sophisticated than their previous encounters had suggested possible. Instead of the crude fusion drives and chemical rockets he expected, these vessels moved with the fluid grace of ships equipped with some form of space-time manipulation technology. It was still impossibly primitive compared to the Empire's biomechanical evolution, but it represented a significant advancement for such a young species. How long has it been since we destroyed their colony? He asked. 6 months, 3 days, 14 hours by their planetary rotation, Thixus replied. The Emperor's contemplation deepened. For a species to advance their technology so dramatically in such a short time frame was unprecedented in his experience. Most civilizations required centuries or millennia to make significant technological leaps. Yet here were humans with ships that represented a clear evolution from their earlier designs. Let them approach, Vorthok decided. I am curious to see what these creatures have learned from their defeat. The human fleet moved into attack formation with precision that spoke of extensive training and planning. Unlike the chaotic mining vessels of Kepler 440b, these ships operated as a coordinated unit, their movements suggesting tactical doctrine, specifically designed for their current mission. Admiral Mitchell watched the alien ship through her view screen, noting how its biomechanical surface pulsed with golden energy. The thing was even more intimidating in person than the transmitted images had suggested, but she had advantages that Captain Vasquez had not possessed. She knew exactly how it fought. Weapon status. She asked her tactical officer. All systems. Green Admiral, the new plasma lances are fully charged, and our adaptive shielding is online. The plasma lancers were humanity's answer to the Nexarian energy weapons. Instead of trying to match the aliens' raw power output, human engineers had focused on creating weapons that could adapt their frequency and intensity in real time. The adaptive shielding used similar principles, shifting its defensive characteristics to counter whatever type of energy was being directed at it. But the real innovation was in tactics. Dr. Chen's final transmissions had revealed that the biomechanical ship fought like a living predator, powerful but following predictable patterns based on biological imperatives. Humanity's response was to fight like a swarm. Begin the dance, Mitchell ordered. The 12 human ships suddenly broke formation and scattered in all directions, but their movements were not random. Each vessel followed a carefully calculated flight path designed to force the alien ship to divide its attention among multiple targets while keeping the humans just outside the effective range of its primary weapons. Weapon status? She asked her tactical officer. All systems green, Admiral. The new plasma lances are fully charged, and our adaptive shielding is online. The plasma lances were humanity's answer to the Nexarian energy weapons. Instead of trying to match the aliens' raw power output, human engineers had focused on creating weapons that could adapt their frequency and intensity in real time. The adaptive shielding used similar principles, shifting its defensive characteristics to counter whatever type of energy was being directed at it. But the real innovation was in tactics. Dr. Chun's final transmissions had revealed that the biomechanical ship fought like a living predator, powerful but following predictable patterns based on biological imperatives. Humanity's response was to fight like a swarm. "Begin the dance," Mitchell ordered. The 12 human ships suddenly broke formation and scattered in all directions, but their movements were not random. Each vessel followed a carefully calculated flight path designed to force the alien ship to divide its attention among multiple targets while keeping the humans just outside the effective range of its primary weapons. Emperor Vorthok watched with growing interest as the human vessels began their complex maneuver. His ship's weapons systems came online automatically, tracking the multiple targets as they wove through space around him. But something was wrong. The humans were maintaining a precise distance that kept them at the very edge of his weapons' effective range, and they were adjusting their positions in response to his ship's movements with uncanny accuracy. "Fire," he commanded, selecting the closest human vessel as his target. The biomechanical cannon discharged its golden beam, but the human ship was already moving. The energy blast passed through space where the target had been moments before, dissipating harmlessly into the void. Immediately, 2 other human ships opened fire with weapons that pulsed with blue-white energy. The plasma bursts struck the Divine Retribution's organic shields and were absorbed without difficulty, but Vor noticed that the energy signatures were different from what he expected. Instead of the crude projectile weapons and simple energy beams the humans had used before, these were sophisticated plasma lances that seemed to be analyzing his defenses even as they attacked. "Interesting," he murmured. "Fire again. Target the vessel on our starboard flank." Again the golden beam lanced out, and again the human ship evaded with movements that suggested they knew exactly when and where the attack was coming. More concerning, the other human vessels immediately focused their fire on the specific section of his ship that had just discharged its weapon, as if they understood that the biomechanical cannons needed time to recharge between shots. "General?" Thixis materialized beside the Emperor with an expression of confusion. "My lord, the humans appear to be coordinating their attacks based on our weapon cycles. They know when our cannons will fire and when they will be vulnerable to counterattack." The realization struck Vorthok like a physical blow. These humans were not fighting blind. Somehow, they had learned the operational patterns of his ship's weapons systems. But how was that possible? The only humans who had observed the Divine Retribution in combat had died when their colony was destroyed on the bridge of the Indomitable Spirit. Admiral Mitchell watched her tactical display with grim satisfaction. The alien ship was reacting exactly as Dr. Chun's analysis had predicted. The biomechanical weapons were incredibly powerful, but they followed biological rhythms that could be anticipated and countered. "Pattern recognition confirmed," reported Commander Park. "The alien weapons require exactly 14 seconds to recharge between maximum power discharges. Recommend we increase attack frequency to maintain pressure." "Acknowledged," Mitchell replied. "Signal all ships, pattern Delta 7 Alpha. Let's see how well this thing handles sustained harassment." The human fleet's attack pattern shifted to a more aggressive stance. Instead of simply evading the alien weapons, they began timing their attacks to coincide with the periods when the Divine Retribution's cannons were recharging. The plasma lances struck the ship's shields in carefully coordinated volleys, each burst slightly different in frequency and intensity as the human weapons adapted to the alien defenses. Emperor Vorthok felt his ship's distress through their neural link. The human attacks were not powerful enough to penetrate the organic shields, but they were creating a cumulative stress on the defensive systems. Worse, the humans seemed to be learning from each exchange, adjusting their weapons to become more effective against his ship's specific defensive characteristics. "How are they doing this?" he demanded of Thixis. "Their technology should not allow for such rapid adaptation." "Unknown, my lord. However, our analysis suggests they have detailed knowledge of our weapon systems and defensive capabilities. The precision of their attacks indicates extensive prior study of our combat methods." The truth was beginning to dawn on the Emperor. The humans at Kepler 442b had not been stalling for time to organize their surrender. They had been studying his ship, learning everything they could about how it fought, and transmitting that knowledge to other human forces. The destruction of their colony had not ended the threat. It had provided these humans with the information they needed to mount an effective attack. Clever insects, Vorthok acknowledged with something approaching respect. But cleverness alone will not save them. Activate the Cascade weapon. The Divine Retribution's most devastating armament was a biomechanical system that could channel the ship's entire power output through its living nervous system, creating a wave of destructive energy that could sterilize entire star systems. It had never been used against such small targets before, but the Emperor's patience was exhausted. Admiral Mitchell watched her sensors as massive energy readings began building throughout the alien ship. Whatever the enemy was preparing, it was drawing power on a scale that dwarfed anything they had observed before. "Ma'am, we're reading energy build-up across the entire alien vessel," Commander Park reported with barely controlled alarm. "Power levels are off the charts. I think they're charging some kind of superweapon." Mitchell had been expecting this. Dr. Chun's final analysis had theorized that the biomechanical ship would have a last-resort weapon system that could draw power from its entire structure. The bad news was that such a weapon would be capable of destroying her entire fleet. The good news was that channeling that much energy through living tissue would create vulnerabilities that could be exploited. "Signal Captain Rodriguez," she ordered. "Tell her it's time." Captain Maria Rodriguez commanded the smallest and fastest ship in the human fleet, the corvette Defiant Heart. As the alien superweapon charged to dangerous levels, she broke formation and accelerated directly toward the Divine Retribution on what appeared to be a suicide run. Emperor Vorthok watched the approaching human ship with contempt. Did the creatures think that ramming his vessel would accomplish anything? The Divine Retribution's hull could withstand the impact of asteroids. One small human ship would barely register, but Rodriguez was not planning to ram the alien vessel. As she approached the Divine Retribution's hull, she fired a single, precisely aimed shot from her ship's plasma lance. The energy burst struck a specific point on the alien ship's surface, a biomechanical interface node that Dr. Chun's analysis had identified as a critical vulnerability when the Cascade weapon was charging. The plasma burst was perfectly tuned to disrupt the organic neural network at that exact location. For a brief moment, the flow of energy through the alien ship's nervous system was interrupted, creating a feedback loop that cascaded through the entire biomechanical structure. Emperor Vorthok screamed as agony exploded through his neural link. With the ship, the Cascade weapon's energy, instead of being directed outward at the human fleet, was turned back on itself. Biomechanical systems throughout the Divine Retribution began failing as the feedback loop spread through the ship's living network. "Impossible," Thixis shouted as emergency warnings flooded their consciousness. The humans struck a single point. How could they know the precise location of our neural interface? But Vorthok understood. In those final moments before the Cascade weapon tore his ship apart from within, he realized what had happened. The humans, at Kepler 442b had not just studied his weapons. They had analyzed every aspect of his ship's biomechanical structure. They had learned not just how it fought, but how it lived, how it thought, how it could die, the divine retribution. Flagship of the Nexarian Empire and terror of 1,000 worlds, broke apart in a brilliant explosion of golden light. The biomechanical tissues that had given it life writhed and burned in the vacuum of space before finally falling still. Admiral, Mitchell watched the alien ship's destruction with mixed emotions. Victory, yes, but victory built on the sacrifice of 50,000 colonists who had died to gather the intelligence that made this moment possible. Captain Vasquez, Dr. Chen, and all the others would never see the result of their courage, ma'am. Commander Park said quietly, "We're receiving signals from across the galaxy. Other species are asking about what happened here. Word is spreading.